I'd like to welcome everybody to the Buddhist Society this evening. The, the basic meditation class is being held in your home this evening. And actually, while we're talking about that, let me say something now, which I shall repeat at the end, which is over the coming weeks. Richard Boba is going to be taking the class next week, and that will be, I guess, exclusively online. But then after that, the next two Thursdays after that, Ajahn Barry will be leading the class. And it just so happens that he is going to be in London at that time. And so the encouragement is, if you live anywhere near, getting to central London is possible. And if the weather is not too horrendous, do come along and say hello to Ajahn Barry. And, I don't know the details of his visit, but I think the idea is he's maybe going to get to the Buddhist Society like at about 6 o'clock. So if anybody wants to come and just say hello, have a chat and all that sort of thing before the class begins, I'm sure that'll work out all right. So that's Ajahn Barry, as I say, not next week, but the two weeks after that. And he will be physically at the Buddhist Society. So this will be a hybrid. These will be hybrid classes because obviously it's going to be Zoomed as well. So that's good. Well, I think so. I think it's great. And although I won't be there, I may be Zooming in as well. I don't know. We'll see. I'm traveling. Right. We got quite a few people here. So we might as well move on to the class. And I'm just kind of looking around. I recognize quite a few folks and quite a few other folks I don't recognize. So I better say a bit about what might happen. I'll give a bit of guidance to begin with. And then after a while, we'll take a little break. Then we'll sit again. And I'll try and leave plenty of time at the end for discussions. Oh, here's another thing. I was just thinking about Ajahn Barry. He really likes to have questions, and he really likes to know if there's anything in advance that you'd like him to talk about. So actually, on my left-hand side here, I have a notepad, and if you want to send in the chat box or even, unmute at the end and tell me, I'll gladly pass on a message to Ajahn Barry. There you go. So we're going to be on mute until questions and answers. Questions and discussion. Questions and discussion. Please, if you have any questions, send them through in the chat box. Yes, send them through in the chat box. At any time, please do. And it's particularly helpful if you can't hear me or I'm talking much too loudly or whatever. I won't feel. In fact, I welcome any comments like that to help things along. So, an evening of mindfulness. Very interesting. It was last week, Ajahn Barry was saying, this practice of mindfulness is not something you stop doing at 8 o'clock or something on a Thursday night. This is something we carry around with us all the time, and at any time. We can just maybe step back a bit from what we're doing and just tune into the way the body feels, for example. We're just sort of detaching ourselves a bit from the hurly-burly of everyday activity. Step back a little bit. That's what it's like. It's like this. and then engaging again. Well, this is, I mean, I feel exactly the same. This is a training session. But the real game, the real match is 5 minutes past 8. That's the real thing. I want to base what I might sort of say this evening around three little words, and those words are noticing, noting, knowing. Noticing, noting, knowing. And I bet you I've made that a theme in the past as well, because in a way that sums up what, for me, what this practice is all about. Noticing, noting, knowing. I think what I'll do is I'll offer a few tips, now for the first few minutes. And that's all going to be around the word noticing, I think. And then when we take a little break, whenever, after 20 minutes or so, I might say something about noting. And then at the end, I might remember to say something about knowing. Anyway, noting, noticing, knowing. And so mindfulness practice is what? It's like this. This is Ajahn Subhaddo. It's all about, well, it's like this. It's what's right in front of us now. It's what we're experiencing right now at this moment, present moment practice. And there's this great line I heard from somebody who was teaching, I think, the basic Buddhism class. They weren't talking about meditation particularly, but they get a bit of homework. Sit down in a room and see what happens. Sit down in a room for 15 minutes and see what happens. That's it. Sit down in a room for 15 minutes and just notice what happens. Just that. Just notice what happens. Notice what happens. Without getting sort of stuck in it. All sorts of things happen in a space of 15 minutes, don't they? Just notice that. So in 15 minutes, with physical sensations and thinking and sounds and of course all the mental stuff as well. Yeah, oh, okay, that's what's happening. But we try not to get the one sort of trying bit, sitting down and seeing what happens is pretty, that in itself is quite, I'm just practicing. No, it's not very stressful. The difficulty is not getting bound up in all of that. The difficulty of this is noticing, but letting go of it. That is just the tricky bit. We've all got eyes, ears, nose, tongues, little sensors in the body, and the brain's probably working all right, So the actual noticing stuff is the easy bit, but the ability to let go is the real skill. Sit down and see what happens. Sit down and see what happens. And so you got some sort of supportive posture, I hope. Just it's not even a suggestion, really. It's common sense. Noticing and letting go. So to notice anything, we have to be reasonably alert. Very alert, but then we're not striving to be alert. We're just alert. Yeah, and so the posture, the suggestion there is we should be sitting reasonably upright. There again, I'm well aware of the fact that the Buddha encouraged the practice of meditation in all four postures. In other words, whatever we're doing, sitting, standing, walking, lying down. But to give ourselves a real chance, an alert posture is quite a good idea, isn't it? That's quite a good idea. So an alert posture. I'm just wriggling a little bit here to make sure I'm sitting a little more upright. I don't think I'm going to nod off. The letting go side of this practice, the non-attachment. If you've read a bit of Buddhism, one of the big problems is attachment, clinging, hanging on to things. Relaxing is letting go. So the posture should be an easy posture, ideally an easy posture, alert but relaxed, alert plus relaxed. Whew. Just go into a room, sit down, relax, see what happens. Okay? Alert posture, relaxed posture, and notice. Notice what? Notice how the body feels. Notice how the body feels. Yeah. There again, just let go of any tendency to make a judgment about the body. Yeah. It feels like it does. And the most obvious thing to be aware of is just the feeling of sitting here. The feeling of sitting here. The heaviness of the body, the weight of the body. And there again, we avoid, getting obsessive about being overweight or anything like that. It's just you feel the weight of the body sitting here. It's like that. And our feet are on the floor, probably. And they feel like they do. You can imagine putting your attention, put your attention on the sole of the left foot. Put the attention on the sole of the right foot. You can't miss it. You can't miss it. It's a big feeling. And so it's a feeling of sitting, the weight of the body sitting on whatever it is we're sitting on. And I always start with the sensations, the physical feelings, the sensations that you can't miss. The feet, backside on cushion or chair, whatever, meditation bench. And then as we breathe in and out, we feel it in the abdomen, the belly, the waistband. In breath, out breath. Can't miss it, as long as we keep breathing. What have we done with our hands? Just park them out of the way. So they're either touching our laps or one hand's on top of the other. And there again, hands are so sensitive, aren't they? So there's bound to be some sort of sensation in the hands. If we're wearing gloves or mittens or whatever, there's still sensations in the palm of the hands. It hasn't gone numb. You notice the sensation, the warmth, the pressure. Other big sensations can be in the shoulders. I want to relax the shoulders by pulling them up and letting them. Yeah, okay. So if we're sort of bothered by life, the universe, and everything, maybe our shoulders are sort of up around our ears. And if we want to, we can relax. Or just noticing what's going on. There's tension in the shoulders. Just be aware of that. That's all we have to do. Notice it, but don't get hung up on it. So large sensations, feet, the feeling of sitting, the hands, the shoulders. And then there's a zillion other sensations in the body as well. And what we're doing when we do this body scan, we do a body scan or sweeping the body, we're experiencing these sensations. We've just got a different perspective on this body of ours. So it's not too old or too young, or can't do this or can't do that, or male or female, black or white. This is all mental stuff. How's the body feel right now? Some of the lesser sensations around the face. Lips probably touching, but check out the jaw. Clamp shut, doesn't have to be. Relax the jaw perhaps. Be aware of saliva in the mouth. Lips touching. Breath on the nostrils. Sensations around the eyes, which may be half open or closed. It's interesting, different people have different preferences. Ajahn Barry likes to keep his eyes half open. I like to keep mine closed. Just experiment. Experiment. It's not a question of the right way. These are just suggestions. Be aware of sensations around the eyes and the forehead. And there again, we might have been reading the books and seen that part of meditation practice is concentration. It's not like that tonight. It's like concentration in the sense of just being aware and just noticing any tendency there to sort of, I've got to get, and avoid the lunacy of, I've got to get peace of mind, come hell or high water by 8 o'clock. No. Just notice sensations in the forehead and the feeling of the warmth of the room on the skin of the face, anything around the ears, into the scalp, an itch or not an itch, and the top of the head. And that's a great one to sort of just direct the attention towards, because maybe there isn't any sensation. Just being aware of no sensation. And that's very profound. That's very profound. Being aware of no sensation. And then back to the shoulders, perhaps. And running the attention down the spine. If you're sitting back against a chair, lots of contact there. Get to the small of the back. It might help if we tuck the small of the back in a bit, lift the chest up, but that's a suggestion. And then down the spine, feeling of sitting, the tailbone, the coccyx. Okay. Up to the top again. Across the collarbone at the front. There again, I'm a terrible one for sort of slouching forward, so just be aware of any tendency to do that. Open up a bit, let the shoulders relax, bring attention to the arms. How are the arms feeling tonight? Well, there's a lot there. 2 of them, and each one begins at the shoulder. It's got an armpit there. Don't often tend to the armpit. How does it feel? Down the upper arm. Note the feeling of clothing around the elbow, down the forearm, to the left, let's say, the left hand. There's a lot going on in the left hand tonight. All the sensations around the wrist, the hand's touching something. There's the palm of the hand there, feeling whatever it does feel. Warm, clammy, nothing special. Back of the hand, fingers. And if we were just doing this single practice for the whole evening, which we're not, but if we were, we'd be running the attention around each individual finger. And another good practice is just bringing the attention to the fingernail on the little finger on one of your hands. And feeling that there's no sensation there. At least there probably isn't. You get the idea. And shift across the right arm, starting at the top. Armpit, down the arm, around the elbow. Feel that shirt or that sweater on the body, down to the forearm, a very sensitive right hand there. Okay. Up to the collarbone. And then scan the trunk of the body at the front and the sides. As we breathe in and out, the rib cage expands and contracts rather than falls. And we're really aware of the touch of our clothing. That's what's going on there, I think. Are you aware of that? And if we're really kind of finally tune in, you can probably pick up the heartbeat, the pulse. And we drop down to the abdomen, the belly. Then you got the waistband there. And feel the breath in the belly. And any other digestive feelings. If we've had a big meal, it's going to feel rather different from if we haven't had any lunch or anything else this evening. Notice that. That's the way the body is this evening. Down to the pelvis. Lower abdomen, pelvis, hips. Yeah, I hope the hips are okay tonight, but they can be a bit iffy. Just be aware of how they feel. And of course, there's a feeling of sitting there as well, that heavy, sitting bones, weight of the body. And then there are a couple of legs coming out of the hips. But if we're sitting on the floor, there's a lot of pressure there, isn't there? A lot of pressure. So just be aware of the upper leg, thigh, anything there. Down to the left knee, the kneecap, the back of the knee. On the floor, that stretch over the knee, into the shin. Again on the floor. Yeah, I feel that. And the calf. And into the left foot. The Achilles. Heel of the foot. Arch of the foot. Ball of the foot. Toes of the foot. And then there's the top as well. And do the same thing, please, with the right leg. Up at the hip. Down to the thigh and the knee. And the shin. And the foot. And that's the way the body is tonight. Just a mass of sensations. And it's quite interesting. If you want to try it, by all means do. But take a period of meditation and just be aware of sensations in the body coming and going. Experiencing the body as, not as male, female, old, young, but as just one sensation after another pinging into consciousness. Amazing. Amazing. How's the mood? How's the mind? How's the thinking tonight? Got anything on the mind, on our mind? Be aware of that. It's just like, you sit down, you notice there's a bit of tension in the body. Once you notice it, perhaps you can let go of it. Once you notice that, oh yeah, that's really bugging me, maybe we can let go of that, The body is the way it is, and the mood, the mind is the way it is. And a mindful meditator just notices the way it is. There's no real judgment involved. Or rather, we notice the tendency to judge. Obviously, some physical sensations are better or less pleasant than others, and likewise with what's going on in our heads. Happy thought, miserable thought. Okay. Some sort of attitude. And it's not like I should think a particular way. Just notice that tendency. I should be different from the way I am. Really? Really? Notice that tendency to get somewhere. That we feel we're lacking something. Just notice that. So the practice is to come here, sit down, and just notice what's going on. What's going on? See what happens. That's quite difficult because we're bombarded with physical sensations, we're bombarded with all sorts of mental stimuli. And so just to notice and let go, it's the letting go bit, which is, that's where a meditation object comes into this practice. That's something that's very, very helpful, something we can deliberately direct our attention to. So that's why we might use the feeling of breathing. The ordinary breath, not yoga breathing, not controlling it. Everybody's breathing tonight, I hope. So we can just switch over to we can be aware of the feeling of breathing around the nostrils or the upper lip or in the belly or chest or whatever. It's good to find a little point, a little area. And that's our base, that's our home, that's our anchor. It's our anchor. And so the practice becomes a very deliberate one. I mean, the mind will wander. It's not a fault. Not a fault. But we don't need to let it wander too far. We can just notice where the attention has gone. Then we have a choice. Get lost in thinking or point the attention back to our meditation object, which may be the breath, or it may be one of a number of other things. A mantra, Buddho. We can do it on the rhythm with the breath, breathing in, Bud, breathing out, Do, Do. Or if we're into Soko Gakkai, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So you just bring the attention back to the mantra. Or I was at a Christian mindfulness class lunchtime today, and Yahweh, 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 whatever. To me, these are anchors, these are stabilizers, these are little bases, little homes, little anchors. To find one that works for you. Or there's the sound of silence, when the mind is quietish in the background. There's often a gentle ringing sound. Lots of choice. That's the problem, really. Let's talk about the breath. Just tuning into the feeling of breathing. In and out. Make a little mental note if it helps. Breathing in, breathing out. Long, short, deep, shallow, no control, just lots of observation, lots of noticing. And the practice is noticing the breath. Noticing the rhythm of the breath, tuning in to the rhythm of the breath. Ideally, all the way through, from the beginning of an in-breath to its middle, to its end. Pause, perhaps. We don't manufacture that, you just notice it, and then automatically the breath begins to breathe. Go out, out breath, end of an out breath, pause. And just tuning into that. Just being aware of it, not analyzing it particularly. Enjoying, and I'll use that word, enjoying the feeling of breathing. Enjoying it because it's actually quite peaceful. Assuming we haven't got a cold or something like that, it's quite peaceful. Now, if we actually were able to let our attention rest on the breath for the next 15 minutes, we'd be very peaceful people indeed at the end of it. Very tranquil. But of course, the mind wanders, the attention wanders. So the practice is Noticing that. Well, I've gone somewhere. Well, not I've gone somewhere. There is. It's moved away from the breath. You notice that. No judgment, no beating ourselves up. For the mind to wander is as natural for the heart to beat. But just observe it. Catch it. Don't let it go too far. And we have a choice. If we want to, we can point the attention back. In breath. Out breath. Breathing in. Breathing out. There again, when there's a bit of discomfort in the body, in a way we have a choice. It depends on the nature of the discomfort. But we could just note it. Oh yeah, the right shin's feeling a bit sore. Point the attention back to the breath. The leg is still there, but it's all about the attention. Where's the attention gone? In breath, out breath. By the way, if there's a lot of discomfort, obviously the sensible thing to do is to move, having first observed the not wanting it to be this way. It's an unpleasant sensation. Fair enough. How much of the problem, if it is a problem, is the pain, and how much of it is not wanting it to be there? Breathing in and out. do stretch, wriggle around if you need to. Noticing, noting, knowing. So the basic practice is noticing and non-attaching, noticing and letting go. That's the heart of it. But it's easier said than done. So now I want to get on to noting, say a bit about noting. And this is more a question of, this is a bit of helpful technique, if you like. There's so many different techniques of meditation practice, of mindfulness practice. They're all sort of pointing in the same direction, but I just want to suggest a noting practice, deliberately noting. And the point about it is, we all know the way that everything can sort of run away and get out of control. It's like one thought leads to another thought leads to another. Or if we're sitting here and there's sensations in the body and there's a reaction to it and off we go, there's a bit of traffic noise. I've said this before, if you actually meditate at the Buddhist Society with Ajahn Barry in 2 weeks' time, it's most likely going to be a bit noisier than where you are now. And you just notice the reaction to a bit of traffic noise. The mind reacts to it. We get a bit lost in all of this stuff. Well, why is the Buddhist? You got a Buddhist Society, the back of Victoria Station in the rush hour. It's not the ideal place, and already, we've started going into some sort of routine about, I wish I hadn't come, and all this other stuff. The noting, I'm going to suggest noting as a way of maybe cutting through all this tendency for one thing to lead to another thing, for the whole thing to get very complicated. Noting just deliberately. Now, this is where Buddhist, if you like, theory is not theory, is really a guide to practice. I'm just about to admit somebody, yes. In Buddhism, there are said to be 6 senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, experiencing physical sensations, those sorts of feelings, and all the mental stuff: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, physically feeling, and thinking, shorthand for all the mental stuff. So 6 senses, and we could debate that. I guess we could debate that, or we could say this is a helpful guide to practice. How so? Why don't we use the 6 senses as a way of noting, labeling what's going into the mind? So, for example, supposing there's traffic noise, or perish the thought, supposing there's somebody on Zoom talking, we much rather, just get on with your practice. Note hearing. And that intercepts, at that point, this tendency to tell a story about making it better or whatever. If there's a feeling in the body, and it's not the sort of feeling where you've got to sort of move and do something about it, just note feeling, sensation. You can sort of label it pleasant or unpleasant, but just park it there. Back to the breath, back to the meditation object, and so on. And obviously the same with all the mental stuff. Label it as think. It's a thought comes into the head. Be honest. It's thinking. It's not a good thought. It's not a bad thought. It's thinking. Or you can also amplify it a bit. You can call it remembering or planning. But when we do that, the danger is we buy into the whole narrative. And my intention when I do it for myself is to keep the practice incredibly simple, just simple. So you just intercept it. Noting is being aware of the thought, just noticing, thinking, noticing a sensation in the body, feeling a sound, hearing, Taste, well, not really relevant when I'm sitting here. Smell, if I had some incense, I'd probably notice the smell. If you're meditating in a group, other people around, aren't there? And then there's all the mental stuff. You just notice, think. And that's just a way of intercepting this tendency we all have to get very mixed up in sensory experience. So all these this sensory stuff, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, physical sensations, thinking, all pinging into consciousness. And we all know the way one thing leads to another thing. And what about the letting go bit? What about the letting go bit? So intercepting all of this with quite deliberately noting, quite deliberately sticking a label on it. Okay. Note the sound, hearing. Note the smell, smelling. Back to the breath. Note the sound, hearing, back to the breath. Note the thinking, back to the breath. Just try that technique. I offer it simply because I found it extremely useful. Keep the noting quite short. Don't get lost in the words, please. Don't worry about if they're the right words. It's just a canny device for keeping our practice simple, for keeping it on track, for developing this ability to let go. Let's do a bit of meditation again. And with a bit of luck, I may not say too much, but if I do, just stop hearing. Back to the breath. So compose the body, alert, upright, relax. Make a little resolve. Yeah, gonna use the breath as my meditation object, or the mantra, or whatever. And then sit here to see what happens. So when the mind, when the attention wanders, I pay attention to the attention. We notice that. Just notice it. Thinking, worrying, planning, rejoicing. Back to the breath. If I'm making a noise, hear it. Back to the breath. Being aware of the pressure of sitting where you are. Let go, just notice sensation, feeling. Back to the breath. Don't try to hang on to the breath. Please don't try to hang on to the breath. But just learn to let go of the alternatives so that we relax back into the next in-breath, the next out-breath. So, if anybody wants to unmute, it is now possible. There we go. Noticing, noting, knowing. So noticing is sitting down for 15 minutes or 20 minutes and seeing what happens. And what happens are sights and sounds and smells and tastes and thoughts and physical sensations. That's what happens. We're not denying that. And maybe the noting, the deliberate noting of it, helps us more clearly to see these things just kind of coming and going without making it more complicated than that. And that's the way I see this. So there's noticing. The basic practice is noticing but not attaching. And the noting, I think, should be, well, I find it an aid to non-attaching, to letting go. But knowing. At the end of a period of practice, I mean, I'm not asking this now, but I mean, at the end of a period of practice, it is very useful to ask yourself, what have I learned? What have I learned after the practice is over? Not, this is not giving a running commentary while you're doing it. That's more thinking, isn't it? But at the end of it, so what was all that about then? This is more a reflecting on what have I learned? And this has got nothing to do with what I've, learned from a book, from what somebody's told you, but it's from your direct experience. I mean, some people talk about intuitive understanding, in your guts, because you just kind of sat here with it. And people talk about insight. Insight meditation is one facet of Buddhist meditation. Insight meditation. What have I learned from direct experience, you see? And there's many aspects of that, aren't there? So what have we learned this evening? Well, one thing we've learned about is so I'm just laughing. I like furry friends. Where was I? Okay. There's so what about meditation? So people have all sorts of ideas about what meditation is all about. We've just experienced it. It's like this. And it can be blissful. It can be very difficult. I mean, I was in a prison on Tuesday, and encouraging meditation in prisons is rather different from encouraging meditation at the Buddhist Society or a local Baptist church. So you get, one guy there who'd been kind of jittering around and saying, this is impossibly difficult. Absolutely, it's just can't do it. It's all this kind of stuff. And somebody else made some weird comment that probably fortunately I couldn't hear correctly, but he was sort of saying, "Oh, it feels so good. It's like I've had sex." And I think, "Huh?" So I mean, how was it for you? Just what was it like? You see, so you learn directly about meditation. When somebody says, "Well, what's meditation all about?" It's about what we've just experienced this evening. That's what it's all about. That's mindfulness meditation. But you also learn things about ourselves, about the way the mind works. The way, just things like, the guy I feel very sorry for, it's like the resistance to just being able to let go and sit back, and the way we get into habitual patterns, not habitual patterns of action, but habitual patterns of thinking. The autopilot. We learn about the autopilot. You see. That's quite interesting. Oh, that's the way we're working. That's the way we're working. And that's quite interesting. So it's about, it's learning about ourselves. And sometimes people have come to a period of meditation. I've come to meditate to find out who I really am, you see. I'm sort of thinking, oh, good question. Good question. For me, it's like peeling an onion, you know. There's always a bit more underneath, actually. Who are we really? Well, but that's for another story. That's another time. But I think another thing we've sort of we know, you know, so this is all about knowing, direct knowledge from what's been happening this evening. I think we know about, maybe we know, but we've discovered the difference between the contents of the mind, you know, and the basic nature of the mind, the true nature of the mind itself. The contents of the mind is all the stuff that we've been experiencing. It's been our experience. It's been the six senses, the thinking, and all the habits and all of that. And all these things come and go, don't they? They come and go. You know, an itch comes and then it goes. A thought comes and then it goes. A mood, I bet the mood is probably not the same as it was, you know, when we started. They come and go. So things come and go. That's called impermanence. Oh, we learned a bit of Dharma there, haven't we? Everything changes. Everything changes, doesn't it? Yeah. So you learn that. You see, you can pick a book up and read all about that. Then you experience it in a period of meditation. Huh. It comes and it goes. It's all the senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, physical sensations, and thinking. They're all impermanent. They come and go. And one moment, you know, the attention is resting on one thing and then on another thing, and impermanent. And there's no stability in it, really. There's no stability in it. So creatures of habit, really. But then there's also, if we're very perceptive, we all notice the nature of the mind itself. You know, people sort of say things like, in a derogatory way, oh, it's all in her mind. It's all in it's derogatory. Oh, it's all in the mind. And the implication is she's making it up. But that, of course, is something that's come into my mind when I say that. I mean, it is all in the mind. Everything we've experienced this evening is entirely and absolutely in the mind. It hasn't been anywhere else. Now, that's not denying that there's an external world out there, right? Including a physical body. And there are real life sounds, and smells and tastes and all the rest of it. But the way we experience it, our experiential world, is all in the mind. It's all in the mind. And now, you know, just putting it like that, what we know, you know, is the nature of the mind, because the mind, the true nature of the mind, can handle all of that. It encompasses all of that. The true nature of the mind is unlimited. You know, it's clear, it's open. Everything is in the mind. It's infinitely large. You name it, in terms of one's experience, it's all in the mind. If you think about the universe, it's a thought all in the mind, isn't it? It's all in the mind. But that doesn't deny the external reality of things, but this is talking about our experience of things. So the mind itself, consciousness itself, awareness itself is, you know, infinitely large. It's unlimited. It's clear. It's open. It's open-minded. And its nature is open-mindedness. And it's impersonal. And apart from sort of saying things like open, unlimited, spacious, infinite, what other qualities has it got? It hasn't got any Colin Ash qualities particularly, you know. So I mean, I just want to point this out. One thing that's very interesting is the difference between secular mindfulness and spiritual mindfulness. Secular mindfulness, which I'm all in favor of, is about being mindful, mindfulness practice to help with, well, you name it, life's problems, right? You know, depression and anxiety, and every day I discover new benefits from mindfulness practice. The latest one is it probably helps your biome. Oh, that's great stuff, isn't it? Spiritual mindfulness is, it's like, well, what have we learned from all of this? And what we've learned is something about the true nature of the world, true nature of the mind. That's enough from me. I have got a question in the chat box. And let me have a look. Just adjusting my screen. Advice, please, on balancing detachment and awareness. I have a tendency to detach too much and be blissfully happy, but forgetful. As I get older, I get more forgetful too, but that's something else, isn't it, really? And that's quite interesting, because I'm looking around here at the group. You've kindly put your camera on. Well, quite a few people have. And I mean, just a sort of a general point about aging. I'm saying that. But I think the experience is as we get older, we tend to forget a lot of stuff. And so what? Okay, so what? That's just a little reflection on that. And there again, if you're happy, that's good. I mean, nothing I've said so far, or the Buddha, more to the point, the Buddha has said 2,500 years ago, suggests that that some feelings are pleasant, some thoughts are pleasant, some sensations are extremely unpleasant. I just noticed that. A deep massage would be extremely pleasant. Knee pain is unpleasant. These are feelings, right? Physical sensations, pleasant, unpleasant. Many of them are just neutral. Nobody's denying that, but it's our attitude to all of that. If we're really as happy as Larry all the time and blissed out, I mean, the only problem about that is it won't last. I mean, I hate to put the mockers on otherwise good evening, but I mean, it's impermanent. It really is, because it depends on conditions. It depends on conditions. Now, if one is blissed out and it doesn't depend on conditions, then I bow at your feet, frankly. But an unusual sense of, bliss, happiness, it depends on conditions. And so it's potentially dukkha-full. Detachment and awareness. Advice on balancing it. Don't think I can give advice on that. You have to work it out for yourself, really. I mean, we all have commitments and responsibilities, and if we sort of sit there blissed out, that's okay until we've got a job to do. And if we can do that joyfully and blissfully, so much the better. But if we can't, we've got to sort of we got to let go of the bliss. Then we've got to let go of the bliss and get on with our duties and responsibilities. Any come back on that at all, or any other questions? Any other questions at all? Oh yeah, hands. Oh, this is good. I've got a big symbol. I'm just going to go from left to right. Oh, it's Joanna. Hi, Joanna. Speak to me, please.
Hello. So it was just about your offered advice, and I think it was me who asked the question about a balance between detachment and, I suppose awareness is not the right word. It's more being attentive.
Yeah.
So I think I'm attached to detachment. And I think that's not a good thing.
You're worried about becoming detached, are you?
No, I am. I think, yeah, no, about being attached to detachment.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. The problem is an attachment problem. Let's get down to basics. The problem is an attachment problem, is it?
Yes.
Yeah? Attached to what? Detachment?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. well, let go of it.
But I'm happy.
You're aware of it. Look, I sort of know what you mean. I mean, it's really nice to be able to step back from life, isn't it? Yes, it is. To be detached in that sense. Yes, it is. That could be what enlightenment's all about. Just a little thought. Okay. But equally, my guess is most of us here have got a function in the world. And the question is, can we function without getting totally enmeshed in it, becoming detached to everything? And I think that's very difficult. How about that? I think that's very difficult. And so we've got to, and this is where another strand of meditation's got to come in. It's like, well, how do we handle that? We've got to be very kind to ourselves, because on the one hand, we have these high ideals about not attaching to things, On the other hand, we're living in the world and doing this and doing that, you know, and yeah, and it's difficult. It's difficult. But I mean, I see no reason why we shouldn't enjoy the good things in life while they last. Yeah. But recognize that they're going to come to an end. I mean, relationships are the same, aren't they? You know, I've been married for a long time, and it would be foolish to say I wasn't attached to my wife. I'd be very attached, and I know the consequences of that. If, in the unlikely event that she died before me, I would be very, very, very sad. That's the nature of life, isn't it? You see, that's the nature of life. Like tomorrow night, yeah, I'm going to a concert. I picked a concert because I like the program, you know. But I mean, life isn't all Mozart and whatever. It isn't like that, you see. And so you've got to, you know, yeah, that's wonderful. That's great. The relationship's fine. The music is absolutely wonderful. A period of meditation is blissful. And then on with life, you see. It's more like that sort of attitude. Let's give Andy a chance. Andy, go ahead.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
Yeah, cool, excellent, thank you. Whilst this class sort of concentrates a little bit more on the core meditation techniques, I also joined the lunchtime meditation, and I particularly enjoyed the one with Richard on a Monday. In fact, I actually use that through the week, so I'll just jump on the online video archive and just pick one. It's a great time of day because it grounds you from what I do is quite a stressful job during the day. But around that, the actual meditation itself, we start the process there, particularly more around the whole Buddhist process. We do the dedication of offerings to the Buddha, the Sangha, the Dharma. The candles are lit, incense is burnt. Can you just quickly, without going into too much detail, just explain the significance of each one of those and why we light the candles, why we bow 3 times, and like why you end the meditation with 3 gongs? Is that one for the Buddha, one for the Sangha, one for the Dharma? Is that right? Or am I going into too much here? Because I spent all night.
Well, okay. Let's start with the bits I can say something useful about. I mean, all these conventions are there for a purpose. That's the first thing. Yeah, they're all there for a purpose. I mean, bowing, yeah, something like bowing to a Buddha image, or maybe at the end of a period of meditation. What is all that about? Well, it could be out of respect for the Buddha image that's on the other side of my screen, on the other side of my laptop, to you. But more to the point, and now I'll be really kind of sort of earthy and pragmatic, it could well be moving meditation. Now again, I mean, those of you who've come to the class for quite a while, have heard this before. But I mean, just bowing is moving meditation in the sense that I'm sitting here, I got my hands on my lap. I'll just give a running commentary on what I'm doing, which is going to be, I'm going to be doing that. So now you know. But I know, first of all, note the intention. I note the intention because it's not an automatic reflex. It's not like sitting on a drawing pin or something like that. So I note the intention. And so I bring my attention to I'm going to raise the right hand first. So I'm going to move the right hand. I note that intention. As I do that, I notice the feeling of the muscle in the whatever it is, bicep or something. Right? You raise the arm up, and you get it up, and then you sort of stop. I usually do this with my eyes closed because it's much more interesting. You notice sensations more clearly. So I intend to stop. I've stopped. I'm going to raise the left arm. Feel the feeling of the bicep. The hand comes away off the lap. The arm comes off the lap. It comes up. I'm straightening my left hand up, more or less lined up, but I'm still got my eyes closed. As I push my hands together, I can feel the warmth of the hand before they actually touch. Touching. Warmth of the hand. Then there's an intention to bow. feeling the body, leaning forward, raising the hand, and so on. Moving meditation. That's the way you can look at it as being moving meditation. Okay. Candles, incense, and flowers. The light of the candle is symbolic in its enlightenment. The incense indicates. You're probably going to look at a book and tell me I'm completely wrong, but I won't be embarrassed. Incense, you're taking ordinary gross material and creating a beautiful fragrance of it. I think that's symbolic of morality, and the flowers are symbolic of something else. Actually, putting flowers on your shrine is very interesting because they fade. You know, at one moment they're beautiful flowers on the shrine or in the vase or wherever you put them. You leave them for a bit and they wilt and die. Impermanence. And these conventions, rituals are just, very helpful in the sense that it's so easy to sort of think, I'm going to plonk down, I'm going to meditate. So you move from this action person mode to a meditating mode. And it's like, it's not as easy as that. So something like, there again, I can only tell you what I do, but when I sit on my own, what I do is I'm going to myself recite the refuges and precepts. Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato, and so on and so on and so on. Okay. And the precepts. Then at the end, you might have noticed. I'm very keen on this, on a bit of Tibetan Buddhism. With wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha till the end. Okay, and so that, I'm kind of moving in from zipping around the place and doing stuff to a quieter, more meditative mode. And then you notice repeating something like that. Never mind the contents of the words themselves. So, there's this formula in Pali. Namo tassa bhagavata buddhang dharanang sami dhammang saranang gacchami. Just bringing your attention into remembering, the formula. Okay, you're collecting the mind, you're collecting the attention. Good, it's good stuff. So it's like these things, these conventions are there to help. Okay, Andy, they're there to help. Use them, take them for what they are. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And I mean, in the context of this class, does Richard, he goes through paying respects to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, does he? Yeah, and so does Barry, right? My style, if I'm at the Buddhist Society, actually, doing it live, is I would go through refuges and precepts, and refuges and precepts usually. But I just don't feel I'm inclined to do that here. There you go. It's just personal preference. We don't have long together, frankly. Are there any other questions at all? Nothing has come through in chat, but if anybody wants, put your hand up if you want to say hello, or more to the point, discuss something. Where are we? Let me repeat what I said at the very, very beginning, which is you're in for a treat in the middle of the month. So Richard is going to be taking the class next week. Then for the following 2 weeks, Ajahn Barry, in person, will be at the Buddhist Society, and he'll also be obviously on Zoom as well. So do go and say hi to him. And that's great. And I haven't. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Somebody's just sent me another message, which I'll read out. I just wonder if there's any questions anybody wants me to sort of put to Barry before I disappear and he picks up the baton in February. If there's any questions, but somebody's, and I might pass this on to him. Somebody's got to go, but they just wonder if we could explore the hindrances a bit more. Yeah, sure. I'll tell you what, I will pass that on to Ajahn Barry. you'd like him to say a bit about, working with the hindrances. Yeah, that's a good one. Anything else? Oh, okay. Are there any more comments
Could I
or questions?
just say something, Colin?
Yeah. Oh, hi, Barbara. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking quite a bit about attachment and detachment, and because attachment, we are often not aware of that we are attached.
Yeah.
And it has become a habit of ours, and we take it for granted. And it needs to, I find, I need to become aware of this attachment, and then either think of it as being something good in my life, or if it is not, which it can be, I have to get rid of it. And I think that's the difficult bit, to actually discard it. And then maybe you want to put something in its place, and which of course is not necessary, often not necessary. And then there is a void, and so it goes on. So I wonder if you, well, thank you very much, Colin, for your teaching tonight. Maybe one could talk a bit more about it.
Yeah, I mean, but right now.
No, not right now.
No. But I will right now.
Okay.
Just say the following, which is just be aware of it. Just be doing what you're doing, because the habit or whatever it is it's there until you notice it. When you notice it, that moment of noticing, you're breaking the habit for a millisecond. It's gonna come back again. You're gonna repeat it again. But the practice is just, there I go again. Okay, there I go again. And just noticing that. And all the time, the attitude towards ourselves is one of kind of compassion or almost humor. There I go again. And that's what this mindfulness practice is all about. You're just noticing these connections and momentarily intercepting them, which diminishes their continuity and their power. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Well, been a nice evening. Thank you very much. And take care until I see you next.